welcome to Horror Librum. I'm your host, Alaric Blackthorne. Make yourself comfortable in the chair and don't be alarmed by the dark and mysterious objects surrounding you. I'm here tonight, surrounded by eldritch objects and forbidden texts, to guide you through tales that stir the deepest corners of your mind and invoke a dread that lingers long after the final word. Sit back, relax, and prepare yourself. For once you enter Horror Librum, there is no turning back.
I never intended to find myself in the remote town of Harrow's Rest, tucked deep within the Oregon wilderness, far from the eyes of the civilized world. It was a necessary stop, a brief refuge on a road trip that had stretched beyond my patience. Yet the moment I set foot in that forgotten place, I sensed something was terribly wrong. The oppressive air weighed heavy, and there was an unnatural quiet that gnawed at my nerves. The locals, what few there were, watched me with sunken eyes, muttering amongst themselves in a language I couldn't recognize. They were gaunt, pale, as if the very life had been drained from them. My stay was to be brief. I'd planned on leaving the next morning, but by nightfall, I was trapped by a storm so violent that the heavens seemed to be ripping apart. The winds howled, and the rain lashed against the windows of the dilapidated inn where I found lodging. There was no escaping the nightmare that Harrow's Rest held. The inn was ancient, its wooden beams creaking with the gentlest touch. The innkeeper, a decrepit old man named Elias, barely spoke a word to me. He handed me a tarnished key with trembling hands and retreated to a darkened corner, leaving me to find my own way to the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the walls themselves held secrets I was never meant to uncover. My room was modest, barely more than a bed and a writing desk, with a single window that overlooked the storm-ravaged streets. I lit the candle provided and sat down at the desk, hoping to distract myself with a book I had packed. But before I could settle in, I noticed something odd on the floor, a small leather-bound journal, worn with age. It had been hidden under the bed, as though someone had hastily shoved it out of sight. Curiosity overtook me. I opened the journal and found the shaky handwriting of a man whose name was unfamiliar, Robert Whitlock. The entries dated back over a century, yet they were perfectly preserved, as if the ink had never dried. The words that followed chilled me to the core. July 23rd, 1892. The dreams plague me every night now. The whispering voices, the shadows shifting just beyond my sight. It all started when I ventured beyond the ridge to the east, where the land grows barren and twisted. There, among the stones, I found something I cannot describe. It should not exist, yet it does, lurking beneath the earth. I fear I've awakened something terrible. July 28th, 1892. The voices are louder now, beckoning me, calling me by name. I can't sleep. The faces of the villagers, they change when I look too closely. Their eyes hollow, their mouths twisted into something not quite human. They know what I've seen, what I've disturbed, but they won't speak of it. They merely watch, waiting for something to happen. August 1st, 1892. I went back today, back to the ridge. I had to. The pull is irresistible. There's a door there, a doorway in the earth, not built by human hands. I'm sure of it now. I can't explain how, but I know it was never meant for our world. I can hear them beneath the ground, stirring. They're waking up. God help us all. I slammed the journal shut, my heart racing. My mind reeled with questions, but one thing was clear. Something terrible had happened in Harrow's Rest, something that still lingered. I resolved to leave as soon as the storm passed, but the more I thought about it, the more I felt a gnawing compulsion, a need to know what Whitlock had discovered. The ridge. What was it about that place? Sleep didn't come that night. The storm battered the town relentlessly, and through the howling winds, I could have sworn I heard faint whispers, but I couldn't make out the words. They seemed to come from deep below, from the very bones of the earth. The next morning, the storm had lessened, but the sky remained a sickly gray, and a heavy fog had rolled in. I packed my things, ready to leave this cursed town behind, but as I stepped out into the street, I found my feet carrying me not toward the main road, but to the east, toward the ridge Whitlock had written about. The path was overgrown. The trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches like claws reaching for the sky. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as though the air itself was thick with some ancient malice. And then, through the mist, I saw it. The ridge. It wasn't much to look at, just a steep rise of barren rock jutting out from the forest. But as I approached, I noticed something strange, an opening at the base, barely visible through the fog. It was a doorway, just as Whitlock had described, carved into the stone, its edges worn smooth by time. My breath caught in my throat. I should have turned back, should have left Harrow's Rest and never looked back. But the same compulsion that had driven Whitlock now gripped me. I stepped inside. The tunnel was narrow, the walls damp with moisture. The air was thick and stagnant, and the deeper I went, the louder the whispers became. They were real now, not imagined, not a trick of the mind. They echoed off the walls, incomprehensible, but undeniably there. I don't know how long I walked, but eventually, the tunnel opened up into a vast chamber, and what I saw there defied explanation. At the center of the room, rising from the stone floor, was an altar of sorts, made of some material I couldn't identify. It pulsed with a faint, sickly light, and around it, half buried in the stone, were the remains of something not of this world. Their forms were twisted, vaguely humanoid, but with grotesque features that sent waves of revulsion through me. I couldn't tear my eyes away. This was what Whitlock had found. This was what had driven him mad. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. Silence fell over the chamber, a silence so complete that it pressed down on me like a physical weight. And then, from the shadows at the edge of the room, something moved. It was enormous, its shape shifting and writhing as it slithered toward me. I couldn't make out its true form. Every time I tried to focus, it seemed to change, to blur into something else. But its presence was undeniable, and with it came a wave of terror, so intense that I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The thing stopped inches from me. Its countless eyes, if they were eyes, staring into my soul. And then it spoke, not with words, but with thoughts, invasive and overwhelming.
You were never meant to find this place.
I screamed, but no sound came out. The world tilted, and everything went black. When I awoke, I was back in my room at the inn. The journal lay open beside me, its pages blank. I stumbled to my feet, my mind a fog of confusion and terror. I had to leave. I had to get out of Harrow's Rest. But as I opened the door, I saw them, Elias and the other villagers, standing silently in the hallway, their eyes empty, their mouths twisted into unnatural smiles.
You've seen it.
Elias whispered.
Now you can never leave.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let me know what topics or types of videos you'd like to see next. Your feedback helps shape the future of this channel. Thank you, and good night, dear listener.